Okay, today I'm going to show you how to take an already really useful gift and turn it into the perfect wedding gift. Are you ready? It's a glass Pyrex dish. I know, right off the bat, that's not super exciting. I get it. But here's what we're going to do. We are going to etch their name into the side of the dish. An eon ago, when I got married, using my new last name gave me a thrill each and every time. That's why I think this is the perfect wedding gift. And hey, if you don't want to use the last name, or maybe not everyone's going to share the same last name, you can etch all kinds of other cute phrases and things onto the bottom of the dish as well. And this also makes a really fantastic housewarming gift. Someone moving into the neighborhood or your friend moving into a new house, you load this thing up with a casserole or some kind of treat and drop it off. Or it's a fantastic host or hostess gift. This one, in fact, is headed to a house we're going to for dinner, and I'm gonna load this bad boy up with super deluxe Rice Krispie treats, and I'm gonna take the pan and just leave it with our host. It is super quick, super inexpensive. You're gonna love it. Come and learn how.
Here's what you're going to need. Any piece of glass Pyrex or other glass bakeware. Just make sure you don't buy any glassware that says it is scratch or impact resistant, as these types may not etch properly. Etching cream, a brush to apply the etching cream, rubbing alcohol, disposable gloves, any color of permanent vinyl. My favorite is Oracal 651. You'll also need a Cricut or a silhouette, not shown in this picture, a weeding tool, a cutting mat, transfer tape, and optionally, an apron to protect your clothes and a dry erase marker. There are all kinds of designs and phrases you can etch onto dishes. My personal favorites to use are the last name of the person or family you're giving the dish to, and the phrase, "If you can read this, you have eaten too much." Whatever you decide you're going to put on the dish, get it ready to go in your design software. Since I use a Cricut Maker, I'll be creating my file in Cricut Design Space. Create a new project by clicking on the big green New Project button in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Then select Text from the options on the left of the screen. A text box will pop up and the word text will automatically be highlighted in green. From this point, you can go ahead and start typing. You don't need to delete the word text first. This next bit is the fun part, selecting your font. I usually spend way too long picking just the right font. For this particular project, I used a free font called Chicken Hut, and it's supposed to look like the Chick-fil-A font, which is a favorite for the family I'm gifting the dish to. The font is available at dafont.com, which is a fantastic resource for fonts. You can easily switch your font by making sure your text box is selected and then clicking on the drop-down arrow next to the word font. Select the font you want to test out and bam, new font. While I liked the font I had picked, I didn't love the extra space it placed between the letters. This is an easy fix though. Select the text box and then click on the box in the upper right that says Ungroup. This will tell Design Space to think of the letters individually instead of as part of a whole word. Now you can move each letter around wherever you want it. Once you get your design looking just the way you want, I like to select the entire design and press the Weld button in the lower right corner. This tells Design Space to cut your words exactly how you see them on the screen, instead of moving them around to save materials in the cutting process. It's time to make it the right size. I use a ruler or tape measure to get the correct measurements of the area I want to put the etching on. Be careful of curves, and if you're putting your design on the bottom of the dish, watch out for any glass bumps from the manufacturer. We do want to use the outside of the dish because glass etching actually removes the top layer of glass, and the etched area might stain if it comes in contact with food. For this particular project, I'm using a 9x13 pan because it's my favorite size, and so I measured one of the long sides of the dish. Once you have your measurements, click on the text box and then go to the top of the screen where you will see a section labeled Size. Within this section are two boxes, the width of the design with a W and the height with an H. These boxes will automatically be set to change proportionally to each other. If you want to make it wider but not taller, or taller and not wider, just click the little padlock above it, which will unlock the measurements. Now when you change one of the measurements, the other will stay the same. I'm setting my measurements to 8 inches long and 1.25 inches high. This obviously will be different based on how long the name or phrase you're using is and the size of your dish. Now let's talk vinyl. You can use any vinyl for this project since it will just be used as a stencil and you'll be throwing it away after you etch. In the past, I've used clear contact paper, which works great, but since it's clear, it's rather hard to see once you place it on the clear glass. I find it much easier to use colored vinyl so I can see it when I apply it and when I'm actually etching. I use permanent vinyl for this project. You can also use removable vinyl, but when I tried, I had bleeding of the etching cream underneath. So for me, it's going to be permanent. It's time to cut your vinyl. Click Make It from the upper right-hand corner of Design Space. Now this next part is important to focus in on. I like to face the name I am etching so that when you're scooping food out of the dish and looking in from the top, you can read the name. And because the name will be on the outside, as I mentioned earlier, I need to reverse or mirror the image. If I don't mirror it, it will be backwards when you're looking in from the top. Make sense? This is the time to click the mirror button on the left side of the screen below the design, and then hit the Continue button. If you're using the Oracal 651, my machine cuts best if I select Everyday Vinyl and then change the pressure to More instead of Default. Place your vinyl on your cutting mat with the colored pretty side up. A regular green mat will work for this if you're using a Cricut. Once the arrow light is flashing on your Cricut, insert your mat with the vinyl on it under the rollers and press the flashing light. The machine will roll the mat in and the C Cricut button will begin to flash. Go ahead and press it and wait for the magic to happen. Once the machine cuts the design, I remove the entire sheet of vinyl from my mat and cut away any large chunks that didn't get cut to save vinyl for another project. But I leave about 2 inches on all the sides so that when I put on the etching cream, I have a margin that will cover the areas I don't want etched. And it helps if you cut your vinyl evenly and straight on the sides. If it's uneven, it's harder to line it up on your dish and keep the design straight. From here, I put the cut piece of vinyl back on top of the mat and use my weeding tool to remove the sections of vinyl I don't want. In this case, the letters. Remember, you want to use this as a stencil. Now it's time for transfer tape. I'll put a link down below to the kind that I love from Amazon. It's clear, so you can see where you're placing things, and this roll will last forever. Cut a piece of transfer tape large enough to cover your cut design. Place it sticky side down on top of the vinyl and use a scraping tool to adhere the vinyl to the tape by rubbing it over the top. Slowly peel up the tape, bringing the entire cut piece of vinyl with it. If any parts are not attached, put that section back down on the mat and use the scraping tool to rub across them and try to lift it again. Once the whole design has been peeled off the vinyl backing, you're ready to place it on your dish. To get your glass ready, use a paper towel or a coffee filter, which is a dust-free option, and rub the area where you are placing your design with rubbing alcohol. This removes any dust and also any oils from your fingers, which gives the vinyl a better chance of really sticking to your glass. To help me line up the vinyl on the dish, I use a tape measure and a dry erase marker to find the center of the dish and mark it. The dry erase marker will wipe right off at the end. Now find the center of your actual design. By folding the transfer tape in half, unsticky sides together, and line up the beginning and end of your word or name or phrase, and press a slight crease into the transfer tape, not the vinyl, just the transfer tape. You don't want any creases in your vinyl. That would lead to bleeding of the etching cream because the creased pieces wouldn't lay flat against the glass. Line up the crease in the transfer tape, with the dry erase marker and make sure everything looks straight as you press down on top of the transfer tape. Rub on the top of the transfer tape with your fingers or your scraper, and when you think it's secured, slowly peel up the transfer tape, making sure the vinyl design stays on the glass. Press all over the vinyl to make sure it's all stuck on, and focus on making sure the edges of the cut design are pressed completely on. At this point, I recommend you put on an apron. I don't always remember to do that, but I highly recommend it. And I definitely recommend putting on disposable gloves so that you don't get any etching cream on your hands. Using a regular brush, apply the etching cream. I usually dump some out on a paper plate so I can easily access it as I'm applying. You don't need to load it onto your design, but keep brushing it around for about 5 minutes so that you know the whole design is covered. At the 5-minute mark, use your gloved hand to rinse off the cream. I rub at the cream while water is running over the top of it. Once all of the cream is rinsed off, I pull off the vinyl and throw it away. Immediately after taking off the vinyl, use a small amount of dish soap to scrub over the top of the etched image and then rinse it off. All that's left to do is dry off your dish and appreciate your mad etching skills. Ta-da! Isn't it glorious? Happy crafting!